Good evening. Due to the COVID-19 emergency, tonight's Committee of Adjustment hearing is being held by video conference and live streaming video on the town's live stream webpage at oakville.ca. This is a hearing to consider applications for minor variance and consents held under the authority of the Planning Act. Please keep in mind that the intent of this process is to review the application that is before the committee, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. This process is not intended to be used to resolve any concerns or disputes that may exist between the town, individuals, or organizations. If a request for a deferral is made, the committee grants such a request, the applicant or authorized agent must contact the Secretary-Treasurer to schedule a new hearing date. In order to conduct an effective and efficient electronic hearing, we have adopted the following process. If you are watching the live stream of this hearing on oakville.ca, and if you wish to speak to an item on the agenda, you can call 905-815-6095. Again, that's 905-815-6095. The phone number is also posted on the screen below the live stream page at oakville.ca. Staff will be standing by to take your call, and when you do call in, staff will ask for your name and number of item that you wish to address and your telephone number. Further instructions will be provided to you to call back to join the video conference. When the chair of the committee polls the interested parties, the Secretary-Treasurer will unmute you when it is your time to speak. The applicant or agent will then be given an opportunity to briefly explain the committee the basis of the application and answer any questions that may arise. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for that presentation. You will need to state the full name and address for the record, and submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. All delegations must also state their full name and address for the record, and the 5 minutes will be provided to make their presentation. All remarks and questions are to be directed to the chair. Any submissions beyond the 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. The applicant or agent will then be provided with further 5 minutes to respond to the comments made by interested parties and answer any questions from the committee members. If the applicant or agent has a concern found in the staff report, particularly with the proposed conditions, this will be the opportunity to advise us. The matter will then be taken into committee for a decision, and this will mark the end of all discussions. Any person desiring a notice of decision for an application must provide a written request, preferably through email, to the Secretary-Treasurer. Please note that you must make a written request in order to be included on the list that is used by the Ontario Land Tribunal for the giving of any subsequent notice of any appeal. Written notice of the committee's decision will be mailed no later than 10 days for minor variance and 15 days for consent applications to the applicant, agent, and any other person who has filed a written request for such notice. If you do not agree with the committee's decision, you may appeal this to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and the last date to appeal the decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal will be noted on the decision. If no appeal is received within the prescribed time frame, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding, and the Secretary-Treasurer will then notify the applicant and anyone who has received a copy of the decision through written correspondence. People participating in this hearing are to be courteous to and respectful of the members of the committee, town staff, and other people participating in the electronic hearing. Tonight's electronic hearing is being video recorded and available for future viewing at oakville.ca. Thank you. We have no regrets this evening. Do we have any declarations of pecuniary interests? I see none. Thank you. And do we have any requests for deferral or withdrawal of applications at this time?
Yes, we do. I've just moved Ms. Beaumont into the meeting.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Beaumont.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can now. Go ahead.
Thank you. Arlene Beaumont, Outred and Associates, we are the agents for the owners of 250 Bronte Road. We had submitted a consent application B2102 and two associated minor variance applications, 076 and 077. We'd like to request deferral this evening. Staff has asked that we submit a servicing plan to them and to engineering for review. The property is currently serviced by municipal water, but we will need to extend the sanitary services from Bronte Road down Riverbends Lane to service two proposed residents. And the engineering department would like to see a servicing plan before we proceed.
Very well. Members, do you have any questions of Ms. Beaumont at this time? Okay, all those in favor of the deferral? Okay, your applications have been deferred, Ms. Beaumont. You'll see the Secretary Treasurer for your earliest meeting when you're ready.
Thank you so much.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay. So the next item on the agenda is application CAV 124 of 2021 at 69 Dunn Street. If you're interested in speaking to this application, the phone number to call is 905-815-6095. Again, it's 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call and will provide you with further instructions to join the video conferencing at that time. Good evening. Mr. Wilmot.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Thank you for having us this evening. Through you, I'm here representing my clients, Mr. Bailey and Ms. Nero. We are making an application for a few minor variances for two small outbuildings, a garage and an accessory structure, a sort of a pool house. And there's three variances required. One for a driveway width, which is really just due to the odd configuration of the lot. The other is to request a small variance for height of these buildings, just for the roof design. And the third is to increase the coverage for the total lot coverage for all buildings on the site. Staff have reviewed this, so is the Heritage staff. We've had pre-consultation meetings with them as well. And that's a very nice house, but it's not ours. There we go. Our clients have canvassed a couple of the adjacent neighbors and who apparently did not have any concerns with our variances, and we respectfully ask that you approve them tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Wilmot. Are there any questions of Mr. Wilmot at this time? I will not be able to see until yes. Okay, thank you, Ms. Murray. Go ahead.
Yes, I have a question. It appears there is one accessory building. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the drawings I have in front of me. Bear with me. So there's a new accessory, there's two new accessory structures. Is that correct? And one is to be used for a gym?
Yes, so there are two. There is one accessory structure is a garage with a little bit of storage for lawn equipment. The other smaller building on the more southerly side is sort of a pool house gym. This house, being the age it is, does not have a usable basement. And so our client has a couple of pieces of equipment they'd like to put in there and use as part of the whole backyard and whatnot.
I'm sorry, Mr. Wilmot, you cut out and I wasn't able to hear you.
Okay, I'll start again. The small structure on the south side is to be used to put a couple of pieces of gym equipment in, and through the winter, it would be used because the basement in the existing house, which is a heritage structure, is not usable for that type of thing. It's only about 6 feet high, so that's why they would like to use it for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Wilmot at this time? I see none. Has anyone called in to speak to this application, Ms. Secretary Treasurer?
There's no one at this time.
Okay, very well, then we can take the matter into committee. Who would like to move the motion? Go ahead, Mr. Flemington. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having reviewed the applicant's written submission, as well as noting that the town staff report notes that it is in support of the application. Also, having listened to the comments from the applicant agent this evening, and noting that no questions or submissions from the public. So there was nothing that was written or oral objections from the public. I find that the application is minor in nature and meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. And I would like to move a motion that it be approved as applied for, with the following 2 conditions. One, that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated July 6, 2020, condition that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Flemington. Is there a discussion on this? Yes, Ms. Murray.
There is, but not on the motion. I actually, forgive me, I had one more question proposed for town staff.
Okay, we're taking things out of turn, but okay, go ahead.
Apologies. Through you, Madam Chair, to town staff. Town staff had mentioned, of course, the intent of regulating lot coverage is to limit mass, ensure adequate open spaces available for outdoor amenity, but also for stormwater infiltration. And I'm wondering, staff has addressed massing, but I don't know if stormwater infiltration has been addressed. And my concern is when I look at the plans, this is a very, very covered lot. There is not much that isn't covered on this lot, and I was wondering if staff could address that, please. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, once this application kind of goes through this phase, it will then need to go through a development engineering site plan process where they'll evaluate the grading and stormwater management of the property. And at that phase, any issues related to that could be resolved through to the satisfaction of the development engineering.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so the motion that is before us is to approve. Thank you. I don't know why I had the word accept in my head and just won't get out. Approve the application as applied for, with the conditions that were read on record, showing that the submitted plans and elevation drawings dated July 6th of 2021, and our standard condition of approval expiring within 2 years. If there is no further discussion on this recommendation, all those in support? Okay, the application has been approved, none opposed. Thank you, Mr. Wilmot.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm just gonna, if there's anybody attending the meeting for the applications at 250 Bronte Road, those applications have been deferred and will not be heard tonight. When they are rescheduled to a future committee of adjustment, there'll be new signs for the property, as well as the circulation going out again to all the residents within the 60 meters. I just noted that there is some attendees at the meeting for this application, and I just want to reiterate that the applications for 250 Bronte Road will not be heard tonight. They have been deferred. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Secretary Treasurer. We have application CAV 125 of 2021 at 227 Wales Crescent. Again, that's application CAV 125 of 2021 at 227 Wales Crescent. Mr. Kieran, good evening.
Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Joris Kieran. I'm the agent for the application. And my office is located at 11 Bronte Road, Unit 31. And we have before you this evening a fairly straightforward application. We're just seeking a small variance for residential floor area increase. It's a two-story dwelling, and slide number 1 is just indicating on our chart what the RFA overage is. It's about 12.5 square meters, so 41% is permitted. We're asking for 42.9 application. Next slide. Just as I usually do, I just try to highlight quickly the areas that are sort of making up the overage. So we have a shower on the main floor where we normally have the powder room. This is a requirement of the client. Normally we wouldn't have a shower there, but that added a little bit of square footage. And we also have a slightly larger mudroom. If we go to slide number 3, please. So we just, they wanted a small laundry room on the second floor as well. So that those 3 spaces basically make up the overage. Go to slide 4. You've got, you know, I just show this to demonstrate that these spaces aren't really contributing anything to the massing of the front elevation. That's why that's there. That concludes the presentation as far as the drawings go. As the members have probably noted, the planning staff has supported this application and this variance. And yeah, I can answer any questions if there are any.
Madam Chair, you're muted.
Sorry, I apologize. Thank you, Mr. Kieran. Are there any questions of Mr. Kieran at this time? I see none. Has anyone from the public called in to speak to this application, Madam Secretary Treasurer?
If anybody's in the attendees for this application, please raise your hand so you can be moved into the meeting. I don't see anybody raising their hand at this time.
Okay, very well, thank you. Then we're ready to take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Ms. Murray.
Madam Chair, thank you. Having conducted my site visit and reviewed the applicant's written submission, which I note that staff is in support of. Having also taken into account the presentation, which as always is excellent and very illustrative of where the additional square footage is going. A particular note, there are no letters or emails in opposition at this time, and no one from the public phoning in against or to speak to the application. I'm satisfied that the minor variance application meets all 4 tests under the planning map, and I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the application with the following conditions: that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevations drawing dated July 7th, 2021, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Murray. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. None opposed.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, Mr. Kieran. Good evening, Mr. Heather. How are you?
I'm great, thank you, Madam Chairman.
Let me just call in the application numbers. I think we've got you for 2 in a row, so just bear with me.
Yep.
Application CAV 126 of 2021 at 333 McDonald Road, Lot 5. And just 1 second. I need to look at this for a second. Okay, they're both lot coverages. Madam Secretary, are you okay if we took both of them at the same time, but move the motions on each separately?
That's perfect. He can do his one presentation that encompasses both the applications, as long as you've read out that we'll be hearing them both one after the, when
Okay.
you've read out 126, also read out 127. So anybody listening know
Sure.
we're discussing them both, but you're right. We have to have two separate motions.
Okay, very well, thank you. So we're going to take application CAV 126 of 2021 at 333 McDonald Road, Lot 5, and application CAV 127 of 2021 at 333 McDonald Road, Lot 6. Again, that's CAV 127 of 2021 at 333 McDonald Road, Lot 6. If anyone is interested in speaking to those applications, please call 905-815-6095. Again, the number is 905-815-6095. Staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instruction to join the video conference. And I do know we have one email of opposition from Mr. Shari and Alan Brown. So though that's on record, are they in attendance? Are they going to be speaking to the application, Madam Secretary Treasurer, to your knowledge?
I do not know if they're in attendance. There is some phone numbers. If they wish to attend the meeting, then they would have to raise their hand so I can move them in. So I don't see anybody with that name at this time, but there's also just phone numbers.
Okay, very well. So anyone in attendance who would like to speak to this application, please do raise your hand so that when Mr. Heather is done his presentation, we can allow you to speak to the committee. And the Secretary Treasurer will put you through at that time. Go ahead, Mr. Heather.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, committee members. Jason Heater from HDS Dwell at 20 Gilmore Road in Puslinch on behalf of my clients at 333 McDonald. We're proposing two new two-story homes on recently conveyed parcel of land. This property existed as two separate lots with a single house that spanned across both of them. We will require a single coverage variance to the current bylaw for each of the lots. We've undergone significant consultation with planning staff in order to bring forward a concept that we feel works well for both the site and the neighborhood in general. This pocket of McDonald features great variations in both home style and size. There's an eclectic mix of product, both existing and new, as well as many homes in two-story varieties and single-story bungalows as well. There is a large block of land that is across the street, directly across the street, that has been recently rezoned to allow a minimum 25% coverage for all homes on that parcel of land. We're seeking, again, one single variance for lot coverage, 24.67 and 24.9 respectively. The intent of regulating lot coverage is to ensure the dwelling is not larger in mass and scale than those surrounding it. We have conducted on slide 4 a fairly thorough lot coverage analysis within the neighborhood. And you'll note that the average lot coverage that we were able to come up with is approximately 26.2%, which is significantly higher than both of the current proposals in front of you. The proposed dwelling meets or exceeds all setback requirements. They comply with GFA, height, and garage area regulations, and thus it's our opinion they do not represent an overbuild for this property. There is significant amenity space in the rear yards of the homes, and the dwellings have been aligned with the rear of the neighboring properties while proposing proper front yard alignment. I have met on site with the neighbor to the east at 341, and I do have an email note of support for the application from them as well. We are proposing a modernized farmhouse style home with simple roof lines and dormer features that help bring the mass and scale of the homes down. The additional coverage is well concealed within the home, and we do not feel that it presents any negative impacts to neighboring dwellings or the streetscape. I hope that you'll find the proposal meets the 4 tests and will result in 2 new buildings that are very compatible with the neighborhood fabric.
Thank you, Mr. Eater. Are there any questions at this time from committee members? Okay, I see none. Has anyone raised their hand to address the committee from the attendees? Ms. McRae?
Not at this time.
Okay, very well. Just to address the letter that we did receive with respect to the mature trees between McDonald and Spruce, can you just care to comment, Mr. Heather? That way it's on record and we've addressed all the concerns, even if the person did not attend tonight.
Yep, that's not a problem. I did read through that neighbor's letter. They are referencing the trees in particular in the rear yard of the home. None of those are proposed for removals. And again, this property will be subject to the DESP process where they'll review both grading and arborist related items.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Committee members, I'm in your hands. I'm ready for a motion. Go ahead, Mr. Tulowski. Thank you. And you'll have to, I'm going to put both of them on you, so you'll do both.
I figured that much, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm prepared to move that, well, actually, before I do that, I'll just say I'm satisfied that with respect to both applications that the variance requested, coverage is consistent with the coverage in the local community and that the proposed dwellings are compatible, and I don't see an impact being caused. With that, Madam Chair, first I would move that CAV A126/2021 be approved as it meets the 4 tests of Planning Act. I would make that approval subject to the dwelling being built in general accordance with the submitted site plan reference 1 dated June 29th, 2021 and elevation drawings reference 2 also dated June 29th, 2021, and that a building permit issue within 2 years.
Very well. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, your application has been approved. None opposed.
Madam Chair, similarly, CAV A127/2021, I would move approval, finding that it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. My earlier stated comments, I would make that approval conditional on dwelling being built in general accordance with the submitted site plan reference 1 dated June 29th, 2021, elevation drawing reference 2 dated June 29th, 2021, and that a building permit issue within 2 years.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Tulowski. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, your application has been approved. None opposed. Have a good evening, Mr. Either.
Thank you very much, committee members.
Good night. Application CAV 129 at 32 Ennisclair Drive West. Again, it's application CAV 129 of 2021.
Sorry, we're at...
Did I miss something?
Yep, we're at 6.5, 128.87.
Oh, yeah, my bad. Sorry. Yes, I inadvertently skipped Mr. Capper's application. CAV 128 of 2021 at 87 Chartwell Road. Again, it's CAV 128 of 2021 at 87 Chartwell Road. If there's anyone here who would like to speak to this application, please call 905-815-6095, and staff will be standing by to take your call and provide you with further instructions. I apologize, Mr. Capper. Go ahead. You're still muted.
Yep, sorry about that. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is David Capper with Glenn Schnarr and Associates in Mississauga. And our address is Suite 700 at 10 Kingsbridge Garden Circle, Mississauga, Ontario, L5R3K6. Madam Chair, just before we get started, I'd like to offer my thanks to Ms. McRae, who was able to facilitate my presentation for this evening being uploaded to the system. I was somewhat tardy in my submission, so for that I apologize and I thank her for her efforts. On that note, I do have a presentation for you, and I can walk through it very quickly. Madam Chair, the next slide, please. The application is for 87 Chartwell Road. It's just immediately south of Lakeshore Road, and it's on the east side of Chartwell and highlighted in red here. Next slide, please. The application before you is for two minor variances, and the first variance seeks an increase in lot coverage, whereby the bylaw permits a maximum of 25%, and the proposed variance seeks a increase to 25.75, which results in a 7.84 square meter increase in maximum coverage, or an 84 square feet area. And the second variance is to permit an accessory building to have a maximum lot coverage of 7.77%, whereas the bylaw permits a maximum of 5% for the lot coverage for an accessory structure. And these variances are required to facilitate a rear yard covered porch addition to an existing detached garage. And I'll walk you through the site plan and the elevations in the next couple of slides. Next slide, please. So this is the rear yard site plan, and the proposed area, if I could get the next slide, please, is shown in red, that the variances are being sought for. And it's a covered porch adjacent to the existing garage and proposed pool. It's intended to be a covered amenity area within the rear yard that the owners of the property can sit and enjoy the rear yard of the property. In terms of the elevations, if I could get the next slide, please. You'll see on this slide highlighted in red is the proposed addition next to the existing garage. And then, that's the west elevation. So if you were to look down the driveway, first of all, it would be a fairly lengthy view, but that is ultimately what you would see. You would not likely see the addition. You may see a small portion of it, but given the location of the house and the length of the driveway, you might not see the actual additional structure. And then in the bottom corner of the property of the slide is the proposed south elevation. Next slide, please. And in terms of the view, if there wasn't existing vegetation, which is quite substantial along the property line, and a fence, this is the view that you would see of the proposed amenity area from the neighboring properties. And you'll note that the northerly elevation, you would not notice the change because that's simply the elevation of the existing building. I believe that concludes my presentation. Yes, it does. I'm happy to answer any questions, should there be any from the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Capper. Are there any questions of Mr. Capper at this time? I see none. If there's no one in attendance who's raised their hand to speak to this application, we can take the matter into committee. Ms. McRae.
There is nobody raising their hand and wishing to speak to this application at this time.
Very well. Who would like to move a motion? Mr. Hardcastle, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having undertaken my site visit, reviewed the materials, including the submitted drawings and the written staff report, I am satisfied, and having heard from Mr. Capper, I'm satisfied that the requested variances conform to the four tests of the Act. The covered porch addition to the garage will have minimal impact, if any, on the adjacent properties, and it's been mitigated in its design. And as such, I'll put forward a motion of approval subject to standard conditions, those being that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings, number 4 dated 04/2021, and that the approval expires within 2 years of the date of the decision if a permit has not been issued. I would note that there were no members of the public present with respect to this matter.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, your application has been approved, none opposed.
Thank you very much.
Good evening, Mr. Kaplan.
Good night.
Hello, Mr. Hicks, how are you?
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the committee.
We're looking at CAV 129 of 2021 at 32 Ennis Clare Drive West. Again, the application is CAV 129 of 2021 at 32 Ennis Clare Drive West. Anyone would like to speak to this application or is in attendance for this application, please call 905-815-6095 or raise your hand for the Secretary Treasurer to allow you to speak. Staff will be standing by to provide further instructions. Go ahead, Mr. Hicks. Oh, Ms. Murray, you have your hand up.
I do, Madam Chair. Before we get started, there are some comments from town staff that it's possible an additional variance may be required. If we could have maybe town staff speak to that before we hear the presentation, that would be helpful. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I can speak to that as well.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, Catherine.
Would you like me to speak? Yes, sorry.
Yeah, go
Through
ahead.
you, Madam Chair, I believe the applicant will speak to this, but we, zoning staff identified that there could be a variance required because the proposed circular driveway and the distance between the two entrances, the expectation would be that it would be at least 15 meters apart, but the plans show 9.47 meters. The applicant can speak to how they would like to proceed based on that information. I don't want to speak for them and what they plan to do.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Hicks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, the site plan that was submitted with the driveway was really a preliminary landscape plan. We will not be seeking any variance for the driveways. We do have a landscape architect that's prepared a detailed plan at this point in time, just in the last couple of days. It will not need any variances in the front yard. So we're satisfied to proceed because we know that we will conform to all the bylaws with respect to front yard landscaping and for the driveway. So.
Okay.
But I'm happy to proceed with the rest of the presentation as well. So.
Go ahead then.
If you can put up the presentation and bring it forward, if that's possible. So. Thank you. So this is a house on Ennis Clare. It's one of the few last unbuilt lots on Ennis Clare, I think. We've worked on quite a number of them. We've worked very closely with the planning department to create a house that we think is really the exact representation of what one's looking for in terms of the infill design guidelines. That being said, we are requesting 3 variances. One for dwelling depth, one for floor area, and one for lot coverage. And if you can go to the next slide or the second slide, actually go to the next one. The dwelling depth, and I'm not sure if you can blow that up, you're allowed 20 meters in dwelling depth. You'll see on that drawing that you are also allowed 23 meters in dwelling depth if there's a 1-story addition to the house at the back. So the pieces that we are requesting are in fact related to a 1-story porches at the back of the house. And the small red areas are the only portions that exceed the maximum allowable building depth. So truly minor in our opinion. In terms of the lot coverage, it really applies to the 2 terrace areas at the back in that same location, excuse me, which make us exceed the lot coverage. And with respect to the GFA, our number seems higher at one point because of the new housekeeping bylaw, we have to include, and if you go to the second floor plan, which I think is the next slide, no, you can go past the rendering. That's a view of the back of the house. And you can go to the next one after that. And sorry, one more after that. You'll see the shaded area there. It's an area that unless you include 25% of or finish 25% of the area above the garage, you have to include the whole garage in your area. It's a space we don't actually even need, but we have to ask for the variance for that. And that represents certainly a portion of our excess gross floor area. We have consulted with all the neighbors in the area, and 5 of them have sent letters in support. The 6th one, which is at the bottom on the lake, is actually one of our clients. He was to send a letter, but it somehow didn't make it to us in time. So we're satisfied that the neighbors are, in fact, they're quite ecstatic to see the existing house be removed on the site. It's been there quite a long time. And we know that planning supports the application because of the work that we've done with them. And I'm certainly open to suggestions. We think it meets the intent of the bylaw, and certainly, as you'll see in planning's comments, it's certainly representative and in character with the surrounding neighborhood. I'll leave it open for questions.
So you mentioned that staff's concern with the 15 meters and the proposed 9.47 that you currently show on your drawings was rectified. Did you provide those drawings so that they can see it?
No, because again, it was a schematic site plan at that point in time. So we're certainly happy to send that to them if they'd like to see it, but we know that there will be no variances related to it. In fact, it's quite an extensive landscape plan for the site, so it'll be quite beautiful. So, but we will be more than 15 meters between driveway entrances, so it definitely complies with that. So.
But if we approve this application, we're tying it to drawings that are existing, aren't we? So do we not need to show the change?
We're happy to submit that to you if you made that recommendation, or else you can make it that the drawings are attached to the application other than the front yard landscape plan. But we're happy to submit that drawing to you in the next day if you'd like to, though. So.
Well, then, let's see if I have a thought, but let's see if my colleagues have anything further to say before I go any further. Ms. Murray?
Through you, Madam Chair, question to town staff on how to jig this, which would be we could follow the requested conditions that the dwelling be.
You cut out, so we couldn't hear you, but I think I know where you're going in terms of putting in the first condition and then adding something to.
Yeah, if we could maybe just say the building be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and to the satisfaction of the director of planning, without noting the date of the elevation drawings. Would that so question to town staff, would that be satisfactory? Or explicitly, are we in need of those drawings right now to pass this variance? Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair, in the comment report that we had prepared, the first condition that we had recommended was that the dwelling being built in general accordance with the submitted site plan to the satisfaction of Director of Planning. And the elevation drawings dated May 13, 2021. And the rationale with that is that our understanding is that the elevations would not change. It would just be the site plan in terms of the format of the driveway, and the variances that are requested today are related to the construction of the dwelling. So if that site plan were to eliminate the variance for the driveway, then we would be satisfied.
So are you satisfied with receiving them after completing this application, and whether we approve it or not?
Yes, we would be satisfied with reviewing the driveway location after the submission, under the understanding that the elevations would not change, so that what's being proposed in terms of the dwelling would not change. It would just be the landscaping at the front.
It will be part of the DESP approval as well, so.
Yes.
Okay, very well. So with those comments in mind, who would like to move a motion? Okay, go ahead, Ms. Murray.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, town staff, for your direction there. Having conducted my site visit and reviewed the applicant's written submission as well as the town staff's written report, which I note that the staff is in support of, but does comment briefly on the driveway, and we've considered and discussed that. Noting that there were written submissions from the neighbors, which I think is fantastic, the work that's been done within the community, and we certainly take note of that. I'm satisfied that the minor variance application meets all 4 tests under the Planning Act, and then prepared to make a motion to approve the application for the variances subject to the following conditions: that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan, to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning, and elevation drawings dated May 13th, 2021, and the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, application has been approved, none opposed. Thank you, Mr. Hicks, and I guess you'll see to getting those drawings to town staff.
I shall right away, and thank you, members and Madam Chairman, and have a good evening. So,
You too.
take care.
Bye. Okay, application CAV 088 of 2021, revised from June the 29th of 2021 at 518 Sharon Drive. Again, that's application CAV 088 of 2021 at 518 Sharon Drive.
Good evening, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Pasquale Aiello, and I'm representing the clients of 518 Sharon Drive. My firm is Organica Studio Plus. We are located at 145 Birmingham Street, Toronto. We are seeking 2 variances and have worked with the city planners based on comments from previous submission, which we had deferred, in order to reduce the front setback variance, which has resulted in us modifying the front in order to better align with the planning policy of the area. It basically created a less dominant projection with the garage. So the front facade was less dominant than what we had before, whereas we had the front entrance wall a little set back, a little further back. So we brought that up to create a more aligned front facade. We've also ensured that the second floor is set back from the front, so it creates a nice stepped effect and creates a low-looking house within the street. We're requesting the 2 variances. The first one is to do with the residential floor area. We're requesting a 42.9%, which is 299 squared. This is to accommodate the needs of the family. The second variance is with regards to the garage area. We are increasing it by 5 meters squared for a total of 50 meters squared from the allowable 45 meters squared. We have been in contact with the planners, as I mentioned before, and they have looked at this as favorable. We also have attached at the very end of these sheets 4 signatures in support of the application. In conclusion, we feel that the application meets the intent of the bylaw and the character with the surrounding areas.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Aiello. Are there any questions of Mr. Aiello at this time? I see none. If there's nobody in attendance or has called in to speak to this application, Ms. McRae, we're ready to take the matter into committee.
I do not show anybody raising their hands to be moved into the meeting at this time.
Okay, very well. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Tulowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I believe the applicants found the right balance with this application to have it fit into the existing neighborhood without an impact, and believe that it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. I would move approval of the application. I'd also note the support from the local community, no letters of objection. And I would move the application be approved, subject to the construction being in general accordance
You froze a little bit, Mr. Tilowski. We got you at general accordance. Give it a second. You're back. We had you until general accordance.
I thought everything went awfully still and silent. Well, let me restart the motion. Move approval of the application, finding that it meets the four tests of the Planning Act, strikes the right balance for the community, recognize the letters of support from the community, make the approval subject to being general accordance with the site plans and elevations dated July 12th, 21, and that a building permit issues within 2 years.
Very well, thank you. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application, all those, Ms. Maria, are you in support? Okay, once again, because some of you phased out.
Support.
All those in support?
Madam Chair.
Okay, so we've got all in support, none opposed. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and committee members. Have a good evening.
Have a good night. Okay, so I'm gonna do the same thing as we did for the adjacent lots earlier. Application CAV 098 of 2021 deferred from July 13th of 2021. And application CAV 099 of 2021 deferred from July 13 of 2021, both at 2016 Watson Avenue, lot 225 and lot 226. Again, that's CAV 098 and 099 of 2021 at 216 Watson Avenue, lot 225 and lot 226. We'll hear them together, but we will put a motion on them separately because they are similar, and I guess you're speaking to both of them. So go ahead, Mr. Randall.
Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. So I'm the owner of the 216 Watson Avenue property, and with me is my building manager, Adam. And we are proposing two minor variances for lot 225 of lot coverage of 25.2%, and for on the lot on 226, a lot coverage of 24.7%. We believe this is in accordance with what is currently built in the neighborhood around us, and we feel like the additional coverage is needed to kind of build a home that encompasses the rest of the homes around that neighborhood.
Okay. Are there any questions of Mr. Randall at this time? Okay, I see none. If there's no one here who would like to speak to this application, Ms. Secretary Treasurer, I do have a letter of opposition from Wayne and Carol and Stephen.
Yeah, there is someone, they've just raised their hand, so I'll just move them into the meeting.
Very well, thank you.
So I've moved Wayne and Carol Ann Stephen into the meeting.
Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
Good evening, Madam Chair and committee members.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, ma'am.
We have submitted a letter supporting our objection to the increased lot coverage, which I'm assuming that all the members have had an opportunity to read.
Yes.
Our major concern is not that we are opposing a minor variance, but more that we don't see this as a minor variance, and we found it interesting also that the information that was provided by town staff in the recommendation for approval back as part of the July 13th committee agenda did not make any attempt to explain or provide any justification for their approval of this being a minor variance. So I would refer you to, as I said, I hope that everybody has read our concerns, but because of what we've outlined, we do not see this as a minor variance, and we've made a recommendation at the end of the letter as to what would be more reasonable. We'd be happy to take any questions you have on that.
Okay, are there any questions of Mr. Wayne and Carol and Stephen at this time?
The other issue that, and I did note that in the letter as well, is that it was difficult to arrive at any conclusion as to what was happening with the property, because at no time have we ever been approached or had any discussion whatsoever regarding the plans or intent from the owners.
So the owners may not have reached out to you, but you've obviously received the circulations from the town as being part of the 60-meter radius. So you've seen, okay. Mr. Randall, care to comment about those concerns that Mr. Wayne and Carol and Stephen have? I'm supposing that you did read their letter of objection.
Did. In terms of complying with the laws, we found that if we were to make two homes that were not involving a minor variance request, that the homes would be too small for the fitting community around, and that they would not be in cohesion with everything in that specific neighborhood.
Okay. Members, are there? Sorry, Ms. Stephen, did you have anything further to say before I take this matter into committee?
Well, considering that the house to the south of this property is a bungalow, our house does not have a lot coverage as they are asking for. The house beside us is small and the one up from it is very small. So the house in the immediate area, the two across the street and the ones on either side and two up are all older, established, smaller homes.
Yeah, and while I do sympathize and I understand where you're coming from, these lots are within their rights to have two-story homes. So a lot of the bungalows may change over time, although that was your expectation or what you're used to seeing around that neighborhood. But the bylaw does allow them to have two-story homes. They're just at that time people didn't opt for it.
Well, we're not objecting to two stories. Most of us are in two-story homes. We're not objecting to that.
Okay. Okay. Well, we've read your letter. We understand where you're coming from. Ms. Murray had a question.
I do, through you, Madam Chair, to
town staff.
No, sorry, to the people in opposition, Mr. and Mrs. Stevens.
Mr. and Mrs. Yes.
Yeah, if there was some way you could express, is there a way that this negatively impacts the enjoyment of your property? Are there other things that I appreciate, and I have also read your letter, and I understand that you feel that it isn't a minor variance, but are there impacts to you personally with the construction?
Considering the lot coverage proposed and the elevation of the home, which will certainly exceed ours, given that we're a smaller, established, older home built in the 40s, we imagine that certainly there will be some occlusion to sunlight, etc. I'm sure there will be. And I would imagine the home will be very close to our lot line.
Okay, so as a follow-up, Madam Chair, through you to town staff, can town staff please confirm that the height of the proposed new dwellings is within the bylaw, and if you could share that, that would be great.
We don't have a variance for height, and we don't have a variance for side yard setbacks, so they're within all the bylaws. The only variance that we're looking at right now is one for lot coverage, and maybe town staff can shed some light on how lot coverage is calculated, then the neighbors would have a better understanding of where these numbers come from as we sit here and look at these applications.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Through you, Madam Chair, when calculating lot coverage, you take the lot area and calculate the percentage of the lot that's covered by the dwelling. So in this instance, increasing the lot coverage would allow for a greater footprint for the dwelling on the lot.
If I could just interject, please, Ms. Butterfield, we certainly do understand how percentages are calculated with the coverage as a percentage of the total lot. That wasn't our concern, and as I said at the outset, we are not opposed to minor variances, but we were simply requesting an indication of how these decisions were made and some transparency on the move to arrive at that decision.
Madam Chair, would you like me to speak to this?
Go ahead, yeah.
Okay. Through Madam Chair, I think when we're evaluating any variance, we're evaluating it against the 4 tests that are brought forward in the Planning Act, which are spoke to at each of these. We look at whether the request meets the intent of the official plan, meets the intent of the zoning bylaw, is minor in nature, and is desirable for the development of the property and doesn't have adverse impacts on the on adjacent properties or surrounding area. And in this instance, in evaluating that, we take a look at the design of the dwelling, how it fits. We do site visits. We review the neighborhood and the context. And in this situation, based on the designs that were brought forward, we felt that the variances met these 4 tests that are in play, and the committee then takes that recommendation and they can make a decision based on the information that's before them today. If anyone has, yeah.
Thank you for that. Members, if you have no further questions of the applicant or Mr. and Mr. Stephen, I know we took things a little bit out of turn this evening, but I did give some flexibility given that that was the last of our application for the night. Then we are ready to take the matter into committee and have our discussion. Okay, I see no further hands up, so who would like to move a motion so we can start the discussion? Go ahead, Mr. Flemington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to sort of put out there that I thank the neighbors for attending the meeting and providing us with the letter of what their opinions are with regards to the variances that are before the committee. I think that, some of the items that you've discussed, such as, shadowing and whatnot, comes from the height of the building. And, that is not one of the variances that is before the committee. Also, just noting that, there are no variances here with regards to side yard setback or front yard setback or any of that. So it is just the lot coverage. Also noting, it appears that you're understanding or trying to understand what the process is I think the town staff kind of illustrated that when we're reviewing these applications, we are looking at, how they, what the impact is with regards to the zoning bylaws and the official plan. So I know sometimes it's difficult when, a decision may not go your way. I think that, if the developer or the builder didn't come and address you, maybe that's something that they can learn on in the future, that, it's always great to sort of chat with the neighbors so that there's an understanding of everything that is being built. But that's why we have this process. So in saying all of that, I think I am going to move a motion in support of the application, finding that it be approved as applied for. I know there's two, so speaking to the first application being CAV
098.
Yeah, thank you. 098/2021. That the application be approved as applied for, noting that there was one written and oral obligation from one of the neighbors. But I do find that the staff report is in support of the application. And I find that it is minor in nature and keeping with the zoning bylaws and the Planning Act. There are two conditions that I'd like to include, and they are that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan dated 2021-0603 and an elevation drawings to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning, and that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Very well. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. None opposed. Go ahead, Mr. Flemington.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Further now with regards to application CAV A099, my comments on the previous application apply to this as well. I do want to move a motion that it be approved as applied for, noting that there was the one letter of opposition and the one oral objection from the same neighbor, with the two following conditions: that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan 4 dated 2021-0603 and elevation drawings to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning. And the second condition, that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Flemington. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. None opposed. Okay, good evening, Mr. Randall.
Good evening. Thank you, guys.
We have minutes to confirm for August 10th of 2021. Ms. Murray moves that the minutes are confirmed. And then we have a motion for adjournment. Mr. Hardcastle is moving to adjourn at 8:10 p.m.